Welcome to the Let's Go Recovery podcast, where we investigate sobriety and beyond that, explore solutions to help us heal at the core, where the root of our problems like addiction or alcoholism begin. We hope you hear something in today's podcast that ignites a change in your life.
I'm super excited to have in studio today a friend, Dr. Paula McCall, the founder of the Semicolon Society, is doing some amazing work in the greater Phoenix area, a doctor in educational psychology. Welcome to the show, Paula.
Thank you for having me.
Finally great to sit down with you. Now, if I just say Paula and I don't say Dr. Paula in front of it, are we going to fight? We're going to still get along? We're going to be fine? All right, good. Well,
In fact, most people don't even know that I have a PhD.
You got that degree. I'm hanging that stuff. I'm like a guy that walks around like wearing it. But no, in all seriousness, thank you for being here. I had a pleasure going to one of your events. Going to be part of Hope Fest continuing. What's it called? Continuing the Story, right?
Yes.
Hope Fest Continuing the Story in downtown Chandler coming up in February. Looking forward for that. So tell us a little bit about that event. But I want to talk a little bit today about the correlation, what your organization does, certainly introduce that. And then we'll get into the story and how our two, paths and how they could possibly meet in just the world and how people have to express themselves. So tell us a little bit about the Semicolon Society and the work that you guys are doing.
So Semicolon Society is named after the semicolon, which is a well-known symbol of mental wellness, suicide prevention, continuing your story, continuing onward, because in grammar, the semicolon continues rather than ends a sentence. So the name was actually named by my teenage son at the time. So it was designed to reflect that idea of continuing onward, continuing the story. So really, the nonprofit, it was built after over a decade of personal community outreach that I was doing as someone who had worked a lot with youth and a lot with parents and a lot with mental wellness and I was working a lot with the Chandler community, especially in just sharing my knowledge, my information, connecting with people. And then finally we became an official nonprofit. So really our whole focus is on providing free mental health education, events, resources, conversations. We do everything from tabling to presentations designed for whoever that we're talking to, for any groups, just talking about mental wellness, mental health, and overall the underlying emphasis of suicide prevention. So a lot of our work is working with organizations, with parents in different areas, doing our own events to just build awareness and conversation about mental health and to really just build empowerment in the community. A lot of the messaging out in the community is, and just in general in society, is that if you need help, ask for help. And that's a nice message, but a large number of people are not going to ask for help when they need help. They feel like a burden. They feel like they're bringing something negative to the people they care about. So what we're trying to do also is just empowering the community as community members, as parents, as adults, as youth, as everyone to just have conversations about mental health and what that looks like, to be aware of warning signs that someone is struggling, to build their ability to have conversations about suicide and about concerns that they may be having about someone, and to have access to resources when they need them.
Wow, that's a lot of great stuff. But you hit on a couple of very big details is that I would say that too, like ask for help. And I kind of thinking of my own journey and recovery story. And of course, a lot of people that I work with, that actually is probably the hardest thing. Like it's super difficult until we strip away some of what you're talking about. And I'm going to say in our industry, in the recovery industry, shame and guilt is the huge burden, right? Like, and I have to put on the facade that everything's okay in my life because I drive a pretty nice car. I live in a pretty nice house. So what could my problems be?
Right.
Like, and I have problems. And I think a lot of the youth that you're talking to, you come from an affluent area. I mean, it's a nice area, but suicide is rampant in the, not only country, but in the state. Did I see that
Yes.
the numbers went up again in this year or in 23, at least I saw the
Yeah,
numbers?
really the only decline we've had in the last 20 or so years was a very brief period of time around 2020. But we haven't had any sort of consistent decline over the last, since about 2007.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
that's sad. And for just a moment, I've like sit and reflect on the idea that that's an option, and obviously I've shared with you some people that are, close to me. And that was the, a choice that has devastated families. What are you seeing as your barrier of entry? I mean, you're talking about free, so I'm on your call or mailing list,
Mhm.
and so I see the events. It's like you guys are doing a ton of events, and you're trying to hit and meet people where they are, right?
Right,
Like, so
right.
if you're a parent, we're going to put you with parents, and
Mhm,
if you're
mhm.
a kid, like there's options and opportunities for that. But tell me a little bit about where's the resistance? I mean, it sounds like, as far as like even gathering and getting people together, like getting some momentum behind that. What are you finding is the resistance?
I think the resistance, there is a couple different aspects. I think some of it is fear. People are afraid to have conversations, especially about suicide. We still hit some of those walls and barriers where people are afraid, well, is this going to put ideas in people's heads, which
Mm,
absolutely has been debunked for years, but it's still something people don't know. And so they're concerned about. I think there's a general sense of like, still that it's I'm okay, things are fine, I don't
mm,
need that information. And that's where part of our piece is empowering people proactively so that, maybe you don't need that information right now, but you might in the
mm.
future. So be prepared. Be prepared to have that so that and we do get a lot of positive feedback about that from people too, where they say, I didn't realize and then I needed it and now I had it.
Oh,
And so I
sure.
made a difference. So yeah, so I think there's just a lot of those components. One of the things too that we'd really try to encourage is having those conversations in the space where you're at, like you said.
Mm,
So while we do offer events where people can come and we make all the events all ages, free. There's always some sort of fun because we want to
component,
build
sure.
resiliency too. So we're having a concert event, right? We've done rock painting, we've done flower planting, we've done yoga, something that connects people in a positive way and builds our resiliency with each other and in the community. But we also meet people where we're at. We've gone to construction sites. We've gone to different organizations, lunch and learns. We're working with an organization on doing their very first mental health resource fair in their location where their employees are. So I think that's part of the barrier too, is people don't know like, "Well, how can this look?" And it's like it can look however you need it to look.
Sure.
We can be there, we can show up, we can adapt to whoever it is and whatever you need it to be.
The reality is someone in the office next to you struggling,
Mhm.
right? Like, I think that for me, and of course, a lot of people that I work with is like, I'm blown away with like, Sarah's struggling, Joe's got problems at home, because again, we put on the masks, right? And I
Yes.
think I think the mask continues on. And obviously I'm talking mainly to adults, but one of the parts of our organization that I'm really enjoying, we call it prehab. And prehab is that instead of waiting for rehab, like
Mhm.
you're, 25 years old, you got to stop these behaviors. We are trying to talk to youth and say, like, one day your heart's going to get broken.
Right.
You're not going to have a job go the way you want to. You're going to
Mhm.
get passed up on
Mhm.
what do you call it? The pay scale upgrade. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The promotion. You're going to not make the team. Those are the days when you need
Mhm.
the Paula
Mhm.
McCalls and the Semicolon Societies to be able to say, like, that's why we want to talk about this because you might feel okay today,
Right.
but someday, like, I love that you said that because I'm sure now people are coming back going, "Thank you for what you talked to us
Mhm.
about,
Mhm.
so many years ago." What are you seeing in correlation to the substance abuse, stuff that we work in and the people that we're trying to talk to? What are you seeing in the youth? Are you seeing an increase or a rise in just how early people are picking up substances?
I think data varies, and I can't say that I'm super well versed in what that data currently is. We know that from emotional perspective, our youth are struggling more and more, especially our girls are really struggling, and that there's lots of violence and sexual violence that is happening to our youth. There's lots of bullying and things like that. So we know that substance use correlates with that too. I'll say qualitatively though, when I talk to youth, when I work with youth, whether in my practice or through the nonprofit, there's seems to be more of a general, like, desire to not delve into the substances as much. That's not to say it's not happening, of
Right,
course,
sure.
but the kinda like this understanding, like they've had these decades and decades, behind them of parents and grandparents
Sure.
and, what was it was normal to smoke, it was normal to drink, it was normal and now we have this different kind of element of our youth going, different perception where it's like, "Well, why would you do that? That's not good for you."
Or it's not healthy.
You know,
Exactly,
like,
sure.
because 'cause they're growing up with the full that's one of the things. There's a lot of negatives too in the world that they grow up with, knowing being exposed to all the information all at once from their time they're itty bitty, right? That's a
Mhm.
lot of information to know about the world and everything around them. But at the same time, they know about the world and everything around them. So they are coming up with this different sense, I think, in some aspects of Well, that's not a good thing. Like,
Right.
why would we do that? So I do have a lot of conversations with youth about some of those things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're equipped with the skills of what else to do. So that's where we build in a lot of those proactive pieces. Like you're saying, I like what prehab.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
prehab.
like that because that's actually what I'm doing later on this evening is working with a group of youth and their parents talking about coping and what are
Right.
coping skills and figure them out now. What's your coping plan? How are you going to support each other with it? Because right now you might be doing fine, but might need some extra support down the road.
Yeah, that's great because that is, I think, it's easier to have that conversation once you've had the conversation. Like,
Mhm.
that's all
Mhm.
guys all the time. Once you step into, like, "Hey, I'm struggling. Hey, I'm an addict," or "Hey, I'm an alcoholic," or
Mhm.
"This happened with my dad." I'm a 45-year-old that found out he had daddy issues, and I
Mhm.
go, "Man, maybe I should have thought about that a while ago," and then the substances don't come into play.
Mhm.
Because you're right, our generation, our I'm 47, you're what, 30 what?
Yes.
Ah,
Same.
same. No, but, our generation and my parents, like, they didn't face any of that. Toughen up, pull yourself
Mhm.
up by your bootstraps, and then, of course, that doesn't always work, right? And so you
Mhm.
don't you're not gonna cry, so
Mhm.
what do you well, have some drugs and alcohol, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's gonna be the simplest solution. Disconnect, numb out, all of these things in that substance abuse arena
Mhm.
that's obvious, but also, if I don't have to talk about it, then I feel a little bit safer,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so I'm not gonna say you're picking at wounds, you're actually just saying, "Hey, when you're ready, have some conversations. When it's
Mhm.
right, have some
Mhm.
conversations." But definitely have some conversations because these
Mhm.
are the things that are gonna change. Again, I think if we start talking a little bit, this week, we're gonna talk a little bit more next week, right?
Mhm.
Like, all of a
Mhm.
sudden, my daughters, now that I'm connected with our family better, my daughters are telling me things that they're not telling me, out of the gate, like, "Hey,
Mhm.
by the way, you're like, "No, don't tell me that." No, they're telling me a little bit parts of their life,
Right.
a little bit more, and then, I'm
And we have to be in
hurting.
tune and when they're giving us a little bit to
Mm,
see how we respond. They're throwing that out there and how do we respond and how do we react to that? I always emphasize opportunities for conversation as
mm,
parents. And I mean, really, we work with all ages, right? We're talking about everyone that needs the supports. But when we talk about especially parenting and youth, having those opportunities for conversation, what opportunities are you putting forward for to connect with your youth? Even if they say, I don't want to talk to you right now, at least I'm still putting forward that opportunity. Am I checking in and saying, what are you watching? Am I saying, checking in and saying, how was school today? Am I providing opportunities sometimes at the dinner table? What do those look like? But then also, what am I noticing as my own opportunities?
mm.
When I know when my son comes home and starts eating a bunch of snacks after school, for some reason he gets chattier. And so even though he comes home and I'm working on emails, once that chatting starts, I need to close that computer and be present because he's giving me an opportunity for conversation. And if I keep shutting those down, why would he continue to offer those?
Wow, that's a great, I came in with the perspective we were going to talk a lot about, like, the idea of asking for help, right? And then I didn't really think about that perspective of finding the opportunity time to be the help,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm just the help, like, and I'm here for you and I'm listening and I'm
Mhm.
present. And I think, and you may or may not have, watched some of my stuff, but I talk a lot about the fact that my daughters started knowing their dad was going to pick up the phone. Like, that's when they
Mhm.
knew that, like, the trust was there, and I think, like, you're saying they're testing the waters by saying something like, let me give him a little underhand one. How's he gonna
Yeah.
react to that?
Yeah.
Hey, dad, this is going on," and I'm just like, what the hell?" You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, if that's the reaction, I can't come to you with this, but, like, man, I'm sorry you feel that way,
Mhm.
and like you say, connecting in with that.
Mhm.
You hit on one thing a little bit earlier, the girls. What is the dynamic there? What are some of your doctor thoughts on, why are the youth girls, what's happening with that? What's going on in that arena?
I think that really our boys are struggling too. With the girls, what we're seeing is just in general more of that emotionality, more an increase in suicidal ideation. And again, that's correlating with things like increases in sexual violence towards our girls. And the numbers are just really astounding as to what they're experiencing. They're living in a world where they're exposed to everything,
Mhm.
and it's hard to figure out what those boundaries are and things like that when if they don't have that guidance. Their executive functions aren't developed, their brains aren't fully developed yet, but yet they're navigating some very adult situations in their lives. Girls have always tended to be um, more. girls tend to be more relational, right?
Okay.
Because, and boys tend to be more physical, right?
Sure.
There's broad generalities, but
Sure.
that's kind of what it is. And and so we also have that relational aggression with girls too. And so one of the factors that we have, of course, is social media. We can't turn it off.
Mm.
Right. They're not growing up at this point in our generations. They are growing up with that presence from the time they were little.
Mm.
So there has been no learning how to turn it off unless they've been taught that and guided with that because they're not going to know that automatically. Now, that's not to say that's not happening with boys too. But what we're seeing with our boys is that we're seeing a lot of more actions that are misinterpreted, especially among our historically minoritized youth boys,
Mm.
where things like getting into fights, being impulsive, that those are things that can be masking underlying emotional and aspects, depression, anxiety, suicidality, but instead they're being approached in a punitive way rather than exploring what's going on underneath those things. So we
Wow.
see, yeah, we see a lot in both sides.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we have an uphill battle, and you guys are on the ground doing a lot of that work. And so tell me, one, you have the event coming up that, again, that we're gonna be part of, and that's where I saw you is in downtown Chandler.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about what this next, what's the Semicolon Society's, like, next phase? I mean, I know, again, you're going into the schools, you're going into the jobs, you're going into the businesses, and I love that. But, like, what does it look like for you moving forward in 2025 and beyond? What's that, look
Good question. We're still a relatively new nonprofit. We were
Sure.
just established in 2022.
2,
Yeah.
22. I read that
So we're
last
still
night.
was like the whole first year was a learning process, right? Networking and connecting and learning. And then our second year was, building events and seeing what goes where. And really we kind of have a few different prongs. One of them is parent education. So we hold a monthly Tuesday Talks parent education session in downtown Chandler at the ASU Chandler Innovation Center. And that's an opportunity for parents to come together in person and hear information by an expert on a different topic every month with free dinner and an opportunity to connect with each other. Because again, that connection is one of the biggest pieces of our events. We also have what we call the Community Hope Project, and that is our series of events that are kind of like pop-up events in the community.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll be a coffee shop and buy everyone coffee, and we'll be sharing resources while we're there. Or again, like I mentioned, things like rock painting, yoga, things like that. So things that aren't necessarily pop, I mean, they're planned, but things that
Sure.
come up and it's like, oh, we have another event coming up. Our signature, of course, is our annual suicide prevention week gathering and vigil, which happens the second Sunday of every September, where people come together to connect with resources, music, art activities, each other, and to remember those that we've lost. And then the event in February is kind of a new element. My personal passions include suicide prevention, of course, and music, live music.
Mhm.
I know my own mental space that I need. If I haven't been to a show within 4 to 6 weeks, I feel it. I feel a difference in me.
Oh, wow.
So I was just at one last Thursday, but but I love live music, and it gives so much to so many people to be immersed in music. So this event in February 21st is our first time merging those worlds
Mhm.
with the locally renowned band Vinyl Station. They are
Okay,
very
cool.
well known in Arizona. They've toured nationally as well. Amazing, amazing band who is also super excited to be a part of this mission with us. So bringing that together with music. And again, the idea is that we're bringing people together to connect with each other, to connect with something that's positive and resilient building like music, and to also have resources.
Right.
We're going to have all kinds of information and resources there for people to connect with. And one of the best things that we can do in building our own resiliency is giving to others. So one of the things we've incorporated and we want to incorporate more in our events is opportunities to give to others. So on this event, we're going to be having a food drive also for Matthews Crossing.
Love
And
that.
every item of food gets a raffle ticket for a series of raffle items.
I love
So
all that stuff. One of the things I like to say, and I've stolen it, and Ed has not called me yet. If you have a problem, you know how to get a hold of me. Ed Mylett said, "You're most qualified to help the person you used to be."
mm,
And there's some beauty in the mother that lost her child helping a mother that just lost her child.
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
when we start connecting those
Yeah.
people together, they carry some of the burden, some of the weight, some of the hurt. I mean, let's just be honest, these sorts of things happening are painful. And we, again, whether you turn to drugs or alcohol, I guarantee you're turning to something. I told you about my friend that's running. Like, she's turning to movement. Like if I go, I'm in a complete opposite direction as fast as I can, it's gonna change. And I go, mm-mm. Like, I don't think it is until she stops and grieves, until
Yeah.
she stops and talks to somebody
Mhm.
and understands that. But I also think you hit on a key component, is helping somebody else,
Right.
right? There's something in that beauty
That
of, like,
is.
keeps that. I don't know what it is. I find it
I think
now.
it gives purpose and value to our own experiences too. One of the beautiful things about Semicolon Society, and I didn't know this was going to happen when I finally made it into a nonprofit, was the community that we built among
Mm,
ourselves. And well, one of our unique pieces is that we have a lot of mental health providers, including myself, who are volunteers and participating. So we make sure that everything we bring to the community is evidence based and
mm,
actually best practice for supporting people. But one of the other aspects is that pretty much all of our volunteers, and we have a strong volunteer family, myself included, has some sort of lived experience related to suicidality and mental wellness. And that's what has fueled people to be a part of us.
mm,
And so we've become our own family, and we always welcome more volunteers. Like we
sure.
our family can keep growing, but when we connect with each other and support each other, but then there's also such as beauty and power in people being able then to reach to other community members,
Mhm.
like you said, who may be, and it's really an amazing experience when we do like our tabling events where we have resources and people come up and talk to us. The things that people share that they've
Oh,
never shared with anyone before, and the
oh.
ability of us as a community to support and be there for them.
Yeah, it's not just, again, support oftentimes sounds like dollars, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's just time.
Mhm.
Your most valuable commodity is your time, and if you will sit and share with somebody, you'll find a lot of growth and healing, on just that short journey. I don't know if you know this, you are the reason we've had 4 people that were at your last event have been on my show. Dr. Chantel, Michelle Cermak,
Okay.
do you know both of those names?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I'm trying to think who else was on our show. Erica Macbeth, it was on our show. So we've had several. So just so you know, you're already doing work in the community. Dr. Shante is doing, its last name's Patel, right? Am I saying that? Patila? You know how her last name is
No.
Patila. She's gonna watch this, and she's gonna be so proud of me for saying it right, Dr. Shante Patila, but she, EDMR work, and
Mhm.
some of those different, again, we say tries, like swings, let me try this again. Yeah, do something else, right?
Mhm.
I still don't feel good about how I feel.
Right.
Good, do something about it. My friend Jim, Poole from New Calm, I don't know if you know what that is. That's the sound therapy,
Okay.
and, he, changes the brain frequency.
Okay.
It's in
Yeah,
just
yeah.
the sound, right? Like, you think it's not doing anything. It reminded me of the concert you're talking about. It's mind-blowing to me that how quickly you can shift in a sound bathing room with
Mhm.
Michelle, for
Mhm.
example, and go like, "Wow, I never thought I was gonna feel that way," right? And what I wanna do is I wanna crawl up in a ball, and I wanna be sad about what's going on in my life, right?
Mhm.
Or I wanna just carry my burden myself, and she says, "Well, no, just come into this space and relax and enjoy,
Mhm.
give that away for a little while." And then all of a sudden it's a lot easier for me to give it away. Like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden,
Yeah.
it's easier for me to sit and I'm gonna use the word meditate. We use that in the AA rooms, 12-step
Mhm.
practices, set in meditation, but yet we don't give necessarily the right resources for somebody to understand what exactly that means, to sit with self,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
calm and quiet. No, no, no. Like, I'm getting inundated with the social media feed stuff. You talk
Mhm.
about our
Mhm.
youth. Like, I have to sit with me sometimes too and just
Mhm.
understand, hey, where am I? I'm been sober quite a while and I'm healing and I'm doing all these things, but like I can have a rough day.
Mhm.
I can have
Mhm.
a tough
Mhm.
one and I get too many rough, tough days in a row, and a drug or an alcohol doesn't seem like that bad of a choice. I
Right.
kind of
Right.
forget where I came from, but I got people like Dr. Shante and Michelle and other friends that are coming to my side and saying, "Hey, on those days, I love the phone call." Like,
Mhm.
then they're carrying me, and I think there's some beauty in what you're establishing is the people that will carry our people in this group, and I think there's some great stuff in that.
Yeah.
So, one can, continue the good work. We're gonna support you. One, we're gonna be at that event, but we're also gonna do everything we can to get as many people eyes and ears on your organization. Anything else you wanna share with us just about what you're seeing, what people can do, pro action? What are some other things you wanna
Well,
set
I
us
think
up
one
with?
of the things that there are a couple things that you said there that made me think. One of them is, yeah, that idea of, it's not just our youth who are doom scrolling. It's not just our youth who
Mhm.
are stuck in social media and all those. We all do it. We all get stuck in there. We all work on, try to mask our things and things like that. And if we want other people around us to be genuine and true, we have to model what that is for them too. It's like we talk about our youth and our children as parents. If I want my child to express to me when they're feeling like they're having a hard day, I need to express to them the same thing. I need to model what I want to see. And we need to do that with each other, right? And be present for each other. And it won't be with everyone, but when a good friend of mine says, "Hey, are you doing okay?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm fine." What am I showing? It's not honest to myself. And it's also not showing to them that I want, I want to be there for that person too. But why would they share with me if I can't even share with them?
Right.
So it really goes both ways. And there's another thing too that you mentioned, and it just made me think of me and um my best friend is actually secretary of Semicolon
Okay.
Society. And we have a system. It's either the 6 or the 7-minute conversation. I don't remember. I think it's a 7-minute
Six and a
conversation.
half minute conversation.
It's right, yeah, yeah.
It's
So we've gotten to the where we know where we can just text the other person and say, "I need the 7 minutes." And within like an hour, like we'll find that time to just sit in that space. And usually it's something with like one of our kids or just a rough day or whatever. And that's really all it takes. It
Right.
doesn't take long to be there for someone and listen to someone, validate them, listen to them. We don't have to fix it.
Right.
That's where we get stuck, right? Is trying to
Mhm.
fix things. We just need to be there, be present, say, "How can I support you?" and just be there. And it doesn't take much time to do that.
I love what you said about being authentic, when your kids see you being authentic. So you're having a really sucky event at home, right?
Mhm.
And things aren't going great. Maybe there's some plates that got thrown last night at dinner, right? There's some stomping out, there's some door slamming, there's some of that going on. And then we go to, I'll just say church is a perfect example of a place we might go and somebody goes, "How's it going?" And I say it's fine,
Mhm.
right? I just start saying it's fine. And then my kids look at me like, "That's not fine.
Yeah.
Rad, that's not true." Right? And
Yeah.
so now their life becomes like, "Hey, he's touching me or doing
Yeah.
something you probably shouldn't. How are you?" "Oh, I'm fine."
Right.
"How's
Right.
things at school?" "Fine."
Right.
Because we've
Because we don't
created.
share that truth.
Right,
We
right,
hold
we've
that truth.
created
Yeah.
that fine is an
Uh-huh.
okay, it's like a little white lie that becomes
Mhm.
part of our life. Like
Yeah.
you said, like, that's crazy to think
Yeah.
about that you're 6.5 minutes, which is a fraction of your day, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna call it 6.5 minutes
I
forever.
like the 6 and a half
Yeah,
minutes.
6.5 minutes. I'm gonna call it that forever because we go like, I have so many 6.5 minutes in my day that why not some of them be real, real true, real, like, I'm gonna call them cleansing, like that
Mhm.
idea of
Mhm.
like, "Hey, I gotta have that friend." I had a guy on the show called Brock Bevel. He's a ex-Mesa PD guy and just a savage in the recovery community, right? Take to the streets type of guy. He's doing the kind of work you're doing, like hitting the ground. And he said, "Who's your 3 a.m. guy?" I'm like, "3 a.m. guy? What's that?" And he's like, "Who's the guy that you can call at 3
Mhm.
a.m. and no matter what, he answers the phone and he says, 'I'll be right there.'"
Yeah.
Right? Like, who's that person that I can call, go like, "Hey, 6.5 minutes." Like, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden she's like, "What's up?" and clears
Yeah.
everything. There's something about that. And there's effort on both parts, but I think, and I said it earlier, that I think it becomes easier once you find out, one, I can tell Paula some stuff
Mhm.
that, like, is true. She's not gonna judge me. She's not gonna react. She's
Mhm.
gonna be there. Like, I'm gonna say it's safe. I love using that language.
Mhm.
Like, I wanna
Mhm.
be able to say some stuff like, "Hey, da 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 da," and you go like, "Wow, that's awful. I'm here for you." Not Dr. Paula McCall steps in and it's like, "Hey, you're taking the 4 steps of this and the 8 steps of that, give it a little of that and we got it fixed." No, I love that you said just, like, kinda be there for her in this
Mhm.
case.
Mhm.
What do you call that? What is that, like, person called in your, I mean, you have one, but do we got some we give our audience? Like, is that some person? Do they got a cutesy name? Like, I don't even know what that is. Like, we call it support.
I'd probably call it my safe space, kinda like my safe
Hmm.
space, my safe person. Our youth, we refer to the trusted adult, right?
Oh, I
Who's
like
your
that.
trusted adult, which that goes both ways, right? If a youth sees someone who's their trusted adult, that adult needs to also know that they're their trusted adult,
Mm.
so that when that youth walks into their office or gives them a call or sends them an email, that adult knows, "Whoa, I'm their person." So
Ah.
it really has to go both ways.
Trusted adult, I love that. I go back to Brock, he said that you better tell him that he's your guy too, not just know it like
Yes.
like he's my guy, he's like, "No, no, no, you let him know, like, you're my
Mhm.
guy, like, I need you,"
Yeah.
and when you find those things, he does a room clearing exercise as part of, like, military or police a thing we do with airsoft, super fun, and it's shocking, like, as you start moving with your he was like, because 'cause we're dudes and we wanna keep that, like, safe space, he's
Mhm.
like, "No, get right up on me, like, you got my back." There was something about us moving like an amoeba that made that
Yeah.
activity like we were more powerful because we were one. As 4 guys trying to do this, room clearing wasn't going so good. But now as we move as like a pod, like we were we were bad. Like, we're bad dudes, you know what I mean? And I go, I think about you guys, and you're having that call and you leave and there's maybe a deep breath, but it's just so freeing. Like, whatever I was carrying into the 6.5 minute
Right.
conversation is now able to be left there, moved past, and now move into, like, all of a sudden nights with your son probably get better, or your family, it looks different because you took the time to just clear.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah. It's that outlet. That's probably
yeah.
the biggest piece of coping. How do I get it out? How do I get the energy out? How do I get the words out? How do I get it out the way that I need to feel that it's not just held contained within myself anymore?
Right, because that's where it stews. What do they call that? Rumination. Rumination is evil, and I start telling myself, and and again, a lot of that's not true. And when I say it out loud to you and go like, "Oh, I'm this, I'm that," that's what I've told myself. And then you're like, "No, you're not." Right? Your friend can tell you, "No, you're not, Paula. Don't worry about what she said. Don't
Yeah.
worry about what they're saying there. Don't worry about what that." No, no, no. Now I can move back and go like, you know what, I am. Something about
Yeah.
like your back kind of pose. Like, and
Yeah.
I go like, hey, like they did that, and
Mhm.
like that's great. I love the work that you're doing. Well, I'm gonna thank you for being here. We're gonna tag and put everything on our social media outlets. Is it semicolonsociety.org? Is that where I will find
Yes.
that? I think that's
Yes.
where I looked
We're
up
also
last
on
time.
Facebook and Instagram.
So Facebook and Instagram, guys, Semicolon Society, do me a favor, look them up, like, follow, share. We have that event coming up at the end of February. All the details on semicolonsociety.org and Facebook and social medias. You can find them. Do me a favor, send her a message, tell her you loved what you heard today if you did, and if you didn't, still tell her that anyway because she did an amazing job and I love having her on the show and she's super smart. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.
I hope you heard something today that gets you to take one small step into the version of the person that you want to be. For more content like this, subscribe to our channel below, or you can go on letsgorecovery.org. Until next time,